Welcome to the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. We got a great show today. Stu is back, and we got a ton of stuff that we're talking about. The Mandalorian, all the casting news that's going on. Batwoman, Ruby Rose dropped out of the role, like totally unexpected. We've got PlayStation, Unreal Engine. We're talking about Predator, the video game with Arnold Schwarzenegger stepping back into the role of Dutch. We've just got so much going on, and Star Trek. So hold on, and here we go. Okay, let's just get right into it. So Ruby Rose, she quit Batwoman. Like that news just broke literally a little while ago. So when this podcast comes out, it'll probably be, tomorrow or the next day or whatever. And then the news will be out there, but it's literally breaking right now. What are your thoughts right off the bat?
That surprises me. Well, it surprises me that it happened, but it doesn't surprise me for her because she did catch a lot of crap when she was cast from all kinds of people. You got some people. I mean, the thing is, she was faithful to the actual character of Batwoman. So anyone crying like, oh, we're over the, lesbian, whatever stuff is bullshit because the character, that is what that character is. But a lot of people are coming after her for being like not LGBT enough. I don't know if you remember all that when she was cast, there was like people kind of coming down on her for not being like, because I think she's bi, or is she a lesbian? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I know she's I think she's come out as she's not like the girl from Billions or I say girl, I totally screwed that up, but who's non-binary, right? She's not like that, is she?
No, but I think I do remember it was sort of like she caught a lot of crap from everyone, it seemed like, and I understand why she would leave because she didn't get the warm reception compared to what she thought she might get. And then, the ratings have been nosediving pretty much. And I think with the finale, because Batman showed up, they were saying like that's sort of what saved their ratings is because Batman showed up at the end of the finale.
Batman showed up?
Well, I don't watch the show anymore. I started the first 4 episodes and then I kind of fell off. But I assume it's like I think they're going into the comic book Hush storyline a little bit where someone like takes Bruce. It's like Face Off essentially with Bruce Wayne. So someone's coming looking like Bruce Wayne, but it's not really Bruce Wayne. That's the gist I got of it. But
excuse me, sorry, my throat. I had to clear my throat. Give me a second. Okay, go ahead.
But I mean, I understand, why she would probably leave because its ratings had really been underperforming for the most part. So I
read that the average episode was pulling in 650,000 people, and that's it. But I thought the CW normally, unlike a network show like Under the Dome or something, that its season premiere brought in 14 million people because it's on one of the big 3 on CBS.
Right.
That the shows on the CW normally, clock only 1.5 million or something a show.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say, if I remember correctly, and it also depends on what ratings you're looking at. Are you looking at the 18 to 49 demo, or are you looking at the total views kind of thing?
Okay.
Because it depends on what metric they value most per se. But I know like when Flash came out, I want to say it was like 1.5 or 4 or maybe even 1.7. It was up there and it was pretty high because CW does broadcasts. They are on cable, but they do have towers. So they are kind of in this murky water where they're not a big 3, but they're also not pure cable. They are.
Right.
They do have some sort of kind of weird broadcast thing going on.
Ruby Rose had that accident and she had like a spine injury.
Oh, on the show?
In one of the episodes.
Oh, that could be.
And I wonder if that has some, look, I wasn't a fan when she was cast, but it had nothing to do with political stuff or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd seen her. She was in the John Wick. Was it John Wick 2 she was in? Where she
Yes.
played the deaf person.
Yeah.
And like, I thought that was great because she can't really act.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to knock her too much, but one of the things I had said was, I mean, if you go back and watch some of my original videos about Batgirl when it first aired or first came out, was that she's very like cardboard. Look,
Right.
she's a great model. She looks great in photos. I mean, she's stunning,
She has a good look.
and she's sexy, and she's got that short hair and she's hot. One of the things I was saying in one of our last podcasts was if HBOMax picked up Batwoman, they could go, with some serious girl on girl action and really, get the man demographic and the LGBT demographic. Yeah. And I say that as a joke, but not really. And, but John Wick, like as long as she's not saying much, she can pull off action. Right? The fighting, the punching, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
being tough, given the glares. But when it actually comes down to like acting, I think she's just not very good. And I remember when she was first cast, I kept saying, well, I hope that if she's in Vancouver or LA, that they get her an acting coach,
Right.
so that she can really hone those skills. Because, sometimes it's hard for models to transition over to actors or actors to transition over to modeling or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And I just felt like she really needed some good guidance. And then, you throw in the spinal injury where she had to have surgery. Maybe she was just done with it,
Yeah.
Well,
I can't imagine a superhero show would be a walk in the park. I mean, you got tons of stunts and you have a insane fandom, in the comic book culture. So, and then you add like, other social things to it. And I'm sure there's a lot of weight on that character. And again, if, you're doing stunts where you can get injured or stuff like that, I'm sure it's like not worth.
But I mean, if you're somebody in the LGBT community, being Batwoman would probably be like Henry Cavill playing Superman. Like, it is a marquee character in
Yeah, but she didn't get all
comic
the
book
love.
franchises.
But she didn't get a lot of love from even that community when she was cast. Like, because I don't know if you remember this. I remember when she was cast, there was like some people kind of came after them because she wasn't LGBT enough.
LGBT enough, which is weird. I don't get that. Like, I don't
get it either. And so
because there's actors that are straight that play gay characters all the time, and the fact that they went out of their way to find somebody who was LGBTQ, then like, why would that not satisfy? Because I would see them up in arms completely if they had gotten a straight girl to play Batwoman.
Yeah.
But they went out of their way because, the CW is very socially inclined with all their superhero shows. They really go out of their way to check boxes and make sure everybody's happy.
Well, and I think that's ultimately why the show kind of got so much negative press, is because, I mean, we saw the marketing for it. I mean,
yeah, the marketing was wrong because the show was better than the marketing.
Yeah, because I remember us talking about this in the past, because I even watched it and I was like, dude, it's actually not that bad. Like all that,
the
super
stupid previews,
propaganda kind of stuff that they were putting in there wasn't really in the show, and the show wasn't bad,
not at all.
So I kind of feel bad that it got caught up in this, a lot of hate because of the marketing. But they also kind of did that too with, treating Batman like a secondary character. I mean, at the end of the day, Batman is the main character. He's the one, and everyone else that's got a bat symbol on them is a spin-off of Batman. So he's like the original. So, and I think that's sort of the same thing with Supergirl. You kind of treat the main characters as kind of like garbage. Like we saw in Supergirl, how Superman's constantly telling her like, oh, you're stronger than me, Kara, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, dude, you're Superman. Like, I mean, not saying that Kara isn't strong, but like, you're the OG. You're the one who created. There wouldn't be a Supergirl without Superman. So I think the way CW's kind of handled their, A-list characters on those shows hasn't really helped the fandom. And then, just the way they, like we said, the way they marketed that just was not doing them any favors.
Well, I mean, obviously they say they're going to go forward with season 2 of Batwoman and they're going to recast the role. Who wants to fill those shoes? You're going to get a lot of clear in my throat on this episode. And I have to tell everybody, I had 2,000 pounds of sod delivered to my house today. And I laid out 2,000 pounds of sod, a pallet, and my allergies went crazy. So if you hear a lot of throat clearing, it's because I labored all day resodding my lawn. I just got to put that out there because I keep clearing my throat, and I apologize. And it's going to be impossible to edit that out. But Ruby Rose is probably throwing away $75,000 an episode, maybe.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
I remember back in like on One Tree Hill, the first couple of seasons, like those guys were making like 45,000 an episode. And that was 13 years ago, or no, 15, 16 years ago. So the CW's got to be paying at least for a lead character like that, 75,000 an episode. So, you do that times 21 episodes. I think they only finished the season with 20 episodes because of the COVID-19. They shut down the last 2 episodes. They didn't film.
Yeah.
So whatever actress steps up, they've got some shoes to fill, but I think they can make that role their own, but I mean, it's hard to figure out what they're going for.
Yeah.
Why? And I think the truth will come out later. Now that this, press release came out and everyone's reporting it, I think we'll find out really what the deal is, in the coming weeks. And I think it's going to have to do with the injury.
Yeah.
The neck injury, the accident that happened on set, whatever it was a stunt that went wrong. Maybe they had her in a harness and jerked the wire too hard or something. And maybe she just was like, it's not worth it. I'm physically in pain. We don't know if, she's on pain meds. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think we'll find out soon. But talking about casting and recasting, I want to jump over to the Star Wars universe, because The Mandalorian, there was a lot of stuff dropping left and right. And, we had Timothy Olyphant is cast as a character in The Mandalorian season 2. What's really cool is he's playing a character according to like the leaks. There's a book that came out right after, like it's called Aftermath. It was a novel, and it kind of explains like the Battle of Jakku and blah 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 blah, and how the First Order rose up and everything. And there was a character in there that is the sheriff of a small town on Tatooine, and apparently he has body armor. There's the big rumors that were like, oh, Boba Fett's going to be in the next season. But apparently, when the sailing barge in Return of the Jedi with Jabba the Hutt, the sailing barge exploded, and you see the scene where the skiff flies away with Luke, Han, and Lando, and Chewbacca, and the droids, and Princess Leia, and they go off. That giant explosion not only blew up the sailing barge, but it blew up the Sarlacc pit as well, which Boba Fett had just gone into the Sarlacc pit. So apparently, a sandcrawler with Jawas comes up on the scene later, and they start pilfering stuff, and they get some of Boba Fett's armor, shoulder, chest, whatever, helmet, all this kind of stuff. And then it ends up in the hands of this sheriff of this town who has Mandalorian armor, which we know that the Boba Fett's armor was Jango Fett's armor from Attack of the Clones. And so, I did a movie with Timothy Olyphant called The Crazies. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, it was
one.
a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked in locations on that, and we shot that in Georgia. And Timothy Olyphant was super nice. His wife would come out to set with the kids, and he was just so good to the cast and crew. When I heard Timothy Olyphant was cast in this, I was like, dude, this guy's part of the Star Wars universe now. Awesome. Same thing with Michael Biehn was cast as a character, an unknown character. And we love Michael Biehn from the Alien films and from the Terminator. I mean, come on, Michael Biehn. And I got to meet him at a con and take a picture with Michael Biehn and shoot the breeze with him. And the fact that these guys are people that I love, that are coming into the Mandalorian universe is awesome. And then I know you were a huge fan of Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah, big
and Katie Sackhoff,
Yeah.
who didn't she play
Starbuck.
which character? Starbuck.
Yeah.
She does the voice for Bo-Katan, which I believe is on Star Wars Rebels or the Clone Wars, one or the other. And she's also transitioning to play Bo-Katan, which I think is badass.
Yeah.
In The Mandalorian. And that's something you kind of were talking about on one of the other podcasts about the actress who voices Ahsoka Tano. You were like, well, why couldn't she just step up? Why did they have to go get, Rosario Dawson?
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of answered it. I mean, I didn't realize they did a fan petition and everyone voted for Rosario Dawson. So that makes sense. And Katie Sackhoff is clearly like, this is like her wheelhouse, like sci-fi drama kind of thing. So why wouldn't you? I mean, she's got a huge fan base from the sci-fi community. So it would be a no-brainer.
Sexy Starbuck. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, she's very attractive.
Even with the cigar in her mouth, it was a phallic thing.
Yeah. But no, so I'm excited for that. I mean, everything you hear about The Mandalorian just keeps getting better and better. Like, I have not heard one thing that I've been like, oh man, about the next season of The Mandalorian. Like,
yeah, and you saw Robert Rodriguez was posing with Baby Yoda and posted on Instagram that he got to direct an episode. And who to direct an episode than a guy that literally does digital cinema at his studios in Texas, where he does everything. I mean, he was big into 3D back in the day. He
embraced it.
He was chomping at the bit at this technology to come in and be able to film in that wraparound. And how much you want to bet he's going to take what he learned there back to Moneymaker Studios and build himself his own virtual set.
I'm sure you're going to see lots of studios like The Void where they have the digital sets popping up everywhere. And I mean, granted, it must cost a ton of money, but I mean, even now you're starting to see productions create video walls just to have simple driving shots done. Instead of doing it in post, they're doing exactly what they're doing, just on a smaller scale around a car.
Yeah, we did that on Reprisal on Hulu. We had one season. The show didn't get picked back up, but it's on Hulu now. If you have Hulu, check out Reprisal. But we did car stuff where they brought in wraparound screens instead of doing rear projection is what they used to do, and then they tried doing it with green screen, and that always looked bad. Like rear projection looks better than green screening around a car. And I always found that interesting because there are scenes in Lethal Weapon 2 where Riggs is like, it's right when he found his dead girlfriend and he's talking on the thing, and he's like, Raj, they killed her. And that was, I saw the behind the scenes, it was all rear projection.
Wow.
And I was just like, damn, that's so good. Same thing with, when you look at, they were doing tricks like that with Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Oh, big time in Terminator 2.
When you had the main endoskeleton walking that steps on the skull, and when it pans up, all the ones in the background were stop motion animation rear projected behind it in different places. And that's, oh my God, it's the old school tricks that get you every time, man. I'm just like, damn, that was so good.
Well, even like when they would do where you'd add practical effects with it, because I remember in Terminator 2 with the scene where the T-1000's in the rig when they've moved to that little crappy Chevy S10 or whatever, that they're running away from the T-1000 in. That when it comes up and hits them, that's like rear projection, and then they have a grinder creating sparks below.
Yes,
because I remember when we loved that movie growing up, and every behind the scenes I could watch, I watched it, and that always blew my mind. Because you're right, when you watch it on a big screen, you don't really notice it. Like, you just get consumed in the action, and you don't think about it. So yeah, it's impressive, even for how old that technique is.
And then, so you got Robert Rodriguez in the mix now with The Mandalorian, and then Peyton Reed, who directed Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's directing episodes. And the cool thing about Peyton Reed is, kind of like James Gunn, he's good with ensembles.
Yeah.
right? But I like that we talked about this before, that the Mandalorian's got like an A story, and that's what they're following.
Yeah.
And they're not really diverting into too many things. But if they are going to spin off Peyton Reed or Robert Rodriguez or Dallas, or Dallas, Bryce Dallas Howard, and Deborah Chow, if they spin off any of these people, like Deborah Chow's going to be doing Kenobi, they're bringing in the right people.
Yeah.
That understand story, that also came from like the real guerrilla stuff. I mean, you look at what Robert Rodriguez did, back in the day, but he also embraces technology, and I can't say that enough. So I'm really excited about everything that's going on with Star Wars Mandalorian, and then the Taika Waititi, getting the new Star Wars feature film, that's pretty badass. I mean, we love him.
Yeah.
When he did Thor Ragnarok,
Yeah.
and we know. Look, these are good people.
Yeah.
And they've got a good track record with Disney and Marvel, and this is what we were saying before. It was like we kept saying to put Kevin Feige in charge of Star Wars.
Yeah.
But they found Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
And we couldn't have asked for a better.
Those two, perfect for that. Like, let those two run Star Wars and we'll be fine. Like, you'll get.
But I will say, did you see the last episode of The Gallery? The Mandalorian, The Gallery.
Yes.
The last. Yeah. It clearly says executive produced by Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
So Kathleen Kennedy,
like,
I still
put my name on it. She's just put my name on it. Of course she's involved.
Look, I'm a fan of Kathleen Kennedy, and
yeah.
I disagree with a lot of how she's been badmouthed. I think she's done a fantastic job.
She earns it, all of it. She earns it because there's just so much news about how, like, didn't I just share a link with you today talking about?
You did.
I've spaced out on it right now, but like I remember sending you something. Oh, it was.
Yeah, it was a thing about how Luke Skywalker. They were afraid that when Luke Skywalker came into the picture, because he's Luke Skywalker, that he would take away the screen time or the imagination away from the viewers of Finn and Poe and Rey. So that's why they made him a hermit. And they made him made everyone want to hate him so that they could love the other ones. And that was a Kathleen Kennedy decision. And I don't buy it.
You don't think she did that? I think that
I think that was a Rian Johnson thing.
I mean, I think it explains everything pretty well. I mean, granted, it's all rumor, so who knows if it's true or not. But I mean, that would make sense that you wouldn't want Luke to, because if Luke Skywalker came back the way we knew him, he would outshine every new character they've created. Because again, you have, no matter, most people you talk to love the original trilogy and they love Luke Skywalker. And so, like, he of course is the one that you wanted to see what happened in 30 years to Luke Skywalker, especially when you left a massive cliffhanger of him not saying a word and Rey just holding a lightsaber out to him. I mean, you're like, what happened next? And then you get, I won't go into it, but like, you get a big disappointment. And it would make sense because I can see that sort of angle per se, because if Luke Skywalker was in the rest of the films, he would be your focus,
But you could have made him like Gandalf.
No, I'm not saying
made him like Gandalf, where he would not have been Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit, or he would not have been, what was the other one from the original Lord of the Rings? Was Forever Young. What was the kid's name?
I can't remember.
He's all grown up now. Elijah Wood.
Yeah. I can't remember his character's name.
Whatever his character was, that didn't take away having the powerful wizard, which is what Luke Skywalker would have been at that point. That didn't take away from those movies. You could have told a story and intertwined it and pleased everyone. But I don't believe that. I think it was all a Rian Johnson thing. I don't believe it was Kathleen Kennedy saying we've got to just kill all the old characters. And I don't believe it. And I still stand by everything I've said about her making the right decisions and putting out fires as a producer and retooling stuff and fixing things and getting things back on track. Her and her husband, Frank Marshall, are
Dude, you have a smile on your face as you're saying this. I don't even think you believe it.
No, I believe it because I know how you feel.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, I'm in Kathleen Kennedy's corner.
No.
I always will be because I don't see what everyone else sees because I see it from a producing standpoint and not where everyone else sees some sort of identity politics, gender pushing. I just don't see it, man.
Agree to disagree. It's to me, it's obvious. Like you can see it everywhere. There's just been again.
Where? Give me an example.
The trilogy, the new trilogy. It was a
no.
train
Give
wreck.
me an example of Kathleen Kennedy dropping the ball. I want to know.
Not having a plan for the trilogy, the most anticipated trilogy probably of all time, and you don't have a plan.
There was a plan. It was JJ's plan.
Okay, then what happened?
Ryan Johnson came in
and aren't producers in charge of directors? Last time I checked.
I've said this before.
Head of Lucasfilm can fire him at any minute.
I've said this before. When they did Rogue One, they had to retool. Tony Gilroy comes in. Gareth Edwards sits down. They retooled. They did some reshooting. They fixed it. Massive hit.
Right.
Now we could argue that just like after Avengers, Iron Man 3, was the first one out of the gate. So of course everyone would go see it and make money. It was the first Star Wars film. We could argue that. But Rogue One is probably next to The Force Awakens, the best Disney era Star Wars film that they've put out next to The Mandalorian and all that.
Would you still say that if the Vader scene wasn't in it?
But that was Tony Gilroy.
No, but I'm saying if the Vader scene wasn't in it, I think people wouldn't have considered it as amazing as it was. It was a good movie.
Yeah, like if the movie ended with the explosion coming towards them on the beach and then they wiped out and then the credits rolled. Yeah. People would have been like, meh. But you gave them what people wanted, which was a badass Darth Vader.
Legacy
Josh
characters.
Trank. Josh Trank is supposed to do Boba Fett. Lots of problems on Fantastic Four. They got the call. Yeah, this guy's a nut. He's screwing up. We're having to come in and squash him and do the reshoots and edit the film and make him sit there in a director's chair and watch all the other people make the decisions. He's a complete mess up. You don't want this guy doing Boba Fett. So they squash Boba Fett. Kathleen Kennedy pulls the plug on it. That evolved into The Mandalorian, which we all love.
Right.
Okay. What? But wait a second. Okay. Solo comes along. They think they got these two hot directors. They're coming off their Oscar win or whatever, or not their Oscar, whatever. I don't even know if they won the Oscar at that point for Spider-Man. But these guys are hot off their Lego movies and this is going to be great. They start shooting. They're getting through. And then Lawrence Kasdan's pissed. Larry's like, Kathleen, they're screwing up my script. They're doing improvisation. Alden Ehrenreich's hiding in his trailer going, dude, they're making me like Jim Carrey. They're making me like Ace Ventura Pet Detective. This sucks. This is not the Solo I signed on for. She fires them, the two knuckleheads, which is what a producer would do no matter what the cost, because Disney said we can't have these movies coming out of the gate and not being loved. They have to be perfect. So they spend almost a full budget all over again. They get Ron Howard in there, and we can both agree that Solo is probably a damn good Star Wars film
it's a great movie.
Its own. Great movie.
Yeah.
Well, that was a Kathleen Kennedy decision. You think Solo's a great movie? That was a Kathleen Kennedy decision. Okay.
Her messes she had to clean up. She cast the wrong people, or she hired the wrong people to begin with, and then she had to replace them. So you're not making a great case for her. Oh, that she saw the mistake, or the production got so bad that she had to replace the director. That's not a good case.
Gareth Edwards does Godzilla. $500 million, $500 million. Disney's like, dude, this guy he did a great job at Godzilla. Let's bring him in.
He did do a good job.
He loves Star Wars. He was a crazy Star Wars nut. They brought him in. Everyone at Lucasfilm loved him, but he had some problems, a little rough around the edges on his shooting style because he wanted the shaky cam, Saving
Right.
Private Ryan look. They wanted everything to be linear, to kind of look all the same. Now, wait a second. Okay. She did the right call. Every movie that you like, she did.
Yeah.
And then when it came to Rian Johnson, they had already technically seemed like Disney had a lot of egg on their face. Bob Iger was like, this is bullshit, man. It's like, we keep having to fire these directors. Colin Trevorrow, during the development of Rise of Skywalker, bounces, because of what Ryan did. He wanted Luke Skywalker in his movie and all that shit. They brought back JJ.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line is she course corrected every time there was an issue, which is what a producer does, which is why she makes.
So she kept making mistakes
for
having
studios.
to fix. She kept making mistakes and having to fix her mistakes. I would think a good producer would sit down with each director and make sure they understand the vision of the film. And she could have been like, hey, I love everything you've done in your old movies with the shaky cam stuff, but this is Star Wars, so it needs to look a certain way. So let's just make sure we get all these conversations, because pre-production's more important than anything else. So I feel like a lot of problems would have been head off at the pass if proper conversations or understandings would have been had. But I think she knew exactly what she was doing. And then when she realized they were going to shit or not going the way everyone else wanted them to, she had to course correct. And again, when Rian Johnson came in with his stupid ass script, why did she be like, no, you're not going to do that to Luke Skywalker? Like, no, if you do that, you can't kill him, because we got to give him.
The reason they did not pull the plug on Ryan was he was so deep into production, and Disney
They
was
have
like,
to approve
you know
a
what?
script, man. Come on.
Disney was like, we struggled with Rogue One, we struggled with Solo. We can't look like we don't know what we're doing, so we're going to run with Ryan, and he'll be our shining star. And then when the movie came out, it wasn't received very well.
So here's my question. According to Mark Hamill, at least if I remember correctly, this isn't really a rumor. I think he even admitted this. I think in the original script, there were boulders and rocks floating around Luke because he was super strong with the Force. He didn't disconnect himself like Rian Johnson had. So my thing is, so you have that. Why, when Rian Johnson wanted to do the opposite of that, would they be like, oh, whoa, you're deviating from what we've already kind of tried to establish? So much so at the last minute they had to pull that out, which to me would have made way more sense if Luke was standing there with shit floating around him because he was this super badass master of the Force. Like, that would kind of been cooler and made more sense why he didn't say anything when she showed up initially, So it's like, I feel like at some point someone could have saw that and been like, no, that's not what we're going to do. Like, there had to have been script approvals along the way. It's Star Wars. You can't tell me someone wasn't approving scripts beforehand.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to put blame on Kathleen Kennedy. I am going to say that Kathleen Kennedy did what producers do, and they fix problems when they arise. And this is where we're at. We're at a place where you like The Mandalorian. Her name is stamped on it. She sits in Video Village. She's right behind George Lucas and Favreau.
Her name it's obligatory. They have to put her name on it, even if she didn't really have much to do with it.
But she's in Video Village.
The day that the promotions team was there to get behind the scenes. Yeah, she shows up for Video Village. I'm sure her ass was there the whole time, because you know how that shit goes. When promo shit comes, all everyone shows up that's not normally there to hang out at Video Village to look like they're doing shit. I'll give you that,
because I've been on many a shows where everyone shows up to see the VIPs when somebody shows up. I'll give you that. Yeah. But I will not give you that it's all Kathleen Kennedy's fault.
We might as well move on, because we'll never.
As I drink out of my BB-8, one of the cutest droids ever created. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy.
I've never.
This was actually. Do you remember Richard Davis that used to have the Brown Coat Pub and Theater down in Wilmington? Yeah, I bought this from his comic book shop.
Oh, cool.
But then he moved. The comic book shop is in another state. I think he's in Tennessee. I might be wrong, but I'll have to go on Facebook and look. He's going to listen to this podcast and hate me for not knowing. I think it's Knoxville. Okay, so Entertainment Weekly dropped a photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dutch.
Yeah.
From the Predator in the new video game Predators. I guess it's called Hunting Ground or something like that. Hunting Season, Hunting Ground. And he did all the voice work for the, I guess it's a what do they call it? DLC?
Or it's downloadable content. It's just like expansion packs for the game.
Right. So you can now download and pay for Dutch to be in that game. And, it was cool. But, they gave him the beard, which he has in Terminator Dark Fate. Which I was like,
Schwarzenegger's rocking a beard now, isn't he?
Oh, no. Yeah, he's totally rocking a beard. But why? I mean, he didn't have to rock a beard in it. But they made him that way. But they also made him look a lot more buff for somebody his age because he's the right age for when. And what's really cool is like his armor, his shoulder pauldron is a Predator helmet of another Predator he killed. And apparently there's cassette tapes because, it was an 80s movie. He recorded all this stuff on cassette tapes, the predators they hunt, in the jungles and all this stuff, and I've been hunting them, and you unlock these cassettes and they play and they get you through the game.
Right.
And I'm just like, dude, that's the movie we should have had.
That would have been way cooler. Yeah.
Why did we not get that Predator movie? Why did we get all the Predator versus Alien, the Predator? Why didn't we get Dutch coming back? And now we can't. Yeah. And now he did the video game. So it's like, that's his, okay.
Well, Schwarzenegger's been doing video game stuff for a minute. Because I don't know if you remember, but like you saw ads like a few years ago for mobile games with him doing ads for
Right.
And then there was Mortal Kombat where he came back as the T-800 for that.
But he didn't do the voice for that.
Oh, he didn't. They just got his likeness for him.
Just got his likeness, yeah.
So, I mean, I think Schwarzenegger is a smart guy, man. Like, he knows where kids are and, where
it's money.
Yeah. So.
But apparently he recorded all of his lines before the COVID-19 outbreak. While he was out doing press for Terminator Dark Fate. Oh. He had recorded all his dialogue for the video game. I just thought it was cool to see Arnold return to the role, even if it's in video game form. I thought that was pretty awesome. And speaking of video games, dude, the PlayStation 5, that Unreal Engine test, talk to me about that, man.
Oh, I mean, it's next level stuff, man. I mean, it's essentially the same sort of technology that's powering the Void soundstage, that virtual sets with real-time ray tracing. That's what you're seeing that. Like, that's the whole reason they're even able to do that is because of video games. So you can thank all of us kids growing up who love video games, playing them all the time for that technology, because those video game enthusiasts really push the graphics card makers to keep, going to the next level. And I think NVIDIA has been they're the company that really kind of put it on the map because they got there way quicker than everyone thought they would. And because I'm surprised that they're doing it because, usually the massive renders for movies, it's because it's trying to figure out where every particle of light is going and bouncing and, and that usually takes, hours to do one frame. And this thing is, a simplified version of that, but it's doing it on the fly, which is insane.
Yeah.
And it's gotten really good. So, that's how you're able to get, virtual sets that are really convincing. And now we're getting all these cool video games. Like, video games are about to go to the next level. And what Unreal was showing off was their next generation render engine. Because right now it's like all Unreal 4 and they're going to Unreal 5. And that's going to be like all the new consoles are going to be running with this new hardware to be able to take advantage of it. So that's where you're going to get realistic lighting. So the games are about to look a lot more realistic. And it's going to be...
I watched the whole demo that they did for the Unreal Engine, the PlayStation 5, that whole what's coming. And, they talked about how, televisions are pixels and then polygons are CGI, but then these are like triangles and that they had just one statue. And they had hundreds of these statues in this one scene.
Right.
was 7 billion triangles, one statue. And you multiply that against every single thing. And then they're able to go out to landscapes and do 3D scans and be able to put that right into these games for people to start manipulating the light. And I mean, the stuff that they're doing is mind blowing. And then I did notice like the character though of the girl was not photorealistic. Like she's not, but the ground, they can capture the ground and the light and statues and buildings and all that. And when she started flying, the first thing I thought of, I sent you the clip. I said, dude, Superman, like we're going to get a proper Superman, or just imagine Spider-Man going through the buildings, you know,
well, I think
and
what
throwing
you'll
his
see
web.
is more television using it. Because, I mean, you've always kind of seen, I don't think you'll see much of a difference in movies other than you'll see more of it because it'll be cheaper. But I think TV and like these streaming shows are where it's going to be a big deal, because it brings it down to more their level of, you know, the crazy time schedule that TV shows have, and the budgets they have are not as, you know, generous as movies. So this is going to be big. That's why I was saying it was a game changer when real-time ray tracing came out, because it's going to be a big deal. And like, you're just sort of seeing the video game version of that. But really
How long before actors are photorealistic in these video games?
I mean,
5 years? 10?
In video games, I think, in 5 years. Like, I mean, I think the biggest issue that everyone has right now is mouths. Like, that was the thing that pulled me out of Gemini Man, was it looked real except for his mouth, where the teeth meet the lips. Whatever happens there always looks, that's the giveaway for me. Like, I can always tell.
Well, and if you see the behind the scenes on Rogue One, when Tarkin when he's just standing there and his eyes pivot back and forth, looks real. The minute he talks,
right,
it's the way
your mouth,
the webbing on the side and your mouth, all these muscles work. They still haven't nailed that yet. But with video games, they don't necessarily have to talk as much.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like if they're
looking at the back of them anyway, most of the time.
Right, because they're walking forward and all that, which is why the Star Wars stuff, Battlefront stuff looks good too. I'm stoked to see where all this goes. Now, one of the other big things that dropped, I want to spend the last, 20 minutes of the podcast talking about this, because this, I know you're excited about it. I'm excited about it, but Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, they put out this thing on Twitter, this video where all the actors who are all in quarantine were like, you're the fans, you demanded it and you got it.
Yeah.
And I know you about had a heart attack, or not really had a heart attack, but you were like, I told you so, because there was another podcast we did a while back where several weeks ago where you literally said they need to do Pike and Spock.
Yeah.
They were the best parts about Discovery. They need their own show. Then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, this news drops and you were like, ta-da.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just me. Like, tons of people on the internet have been like, well, this is the show we want to see. And it's like, and it's true. Like, for me, they were the best part of Discovery season 2, probably because whenever Pike felt more like a return to the old school Star Trek, just because he was the captain and he was like the guy that kind of had it all figured out. But they made him more relatable, where, he wasn't always right or whatever. Not that they ever did that on the Next Gen, but I did like his part. And then the way they ended Discovery season 2, they were done. Like, you knew that they were done because Discovery jumped into the future and all that. And I was like, man, I really want to see, because they had I think they've got 6 or 8 years before Kirk becomes captain of the Enterprise. And so I was like, man, that's a 5 or 6 year run of a show you could do. And so I was like,
which
really
is about
excited.
all these streaming shows seem to do, is 6 years, 5 years, and they're done. They just don't seem to invest in 10 years anymore into a show, unless it's Grey's Anatomy, which is 20 years or something, or Law and Order, which is 25 years or something.
Well, and I think the big takeaway was from that reveal was how they said they were going back to the optimistic and I think they even said it, not a full. It's like more episodic, kind of return
So
to.
it won't be a linear story.
Right.
It'll be each episode is a contained where they resolve some conflict on a planet.
Right.
Which is what they're supposed to be doing, for God's sakes.
And I don't mind having Star Wars shows that do have a linear story.
Star Trek.
I mean,
I know it's all blending together, but I got you.
Thank you. I don't mind Star Trek shows that do have linear storylines. I think you can have both. I think what people were more frustrated about is you hadn't had a Star Trek show in such a long time, like Next Gen and stuff like that, that everyone was kind of like, first thing out the gate, you're going to give us like this, which is super opposite of what the Next Generation was.
Right?
Yeah, Discovery. So it's like, so there was a natural knee-jerk reaction to it. And the smart play would have been to create a new next-gen type of show and then start introducing new shows that might not do that, because I think Star Trek is a big enough universe where you don't have to follow the same formula for all of it. But you need at least one show giving everyone that old school Star Trek. And that's what I'm excited about. And you think
this one's it. And that's, I'm glad you were telling me this is like 6 years before Kirk, because my next question was, how long before Kirk comes along and Pike goes bye-bye?
Well, I think I heard, I don't know if this is legit or if it was a rumor, but I thought I heard or read somewhere that they were looking to cast a young Kirk.
What?
So you might even have Kirk show up on the Enterprise later on, as like you might see him as a cadet in an episode, and then they might ease into the transition. So by the end of the show's run,
well, because Star Trek, because if you are going linear with it, it was Spock that created the no-win scenario.
Yeah.
That Kirk beat. At least I think that's
Kobayashi Maru.
The Kobayashi Maru. So
yeah.
At some point you would have to introduce Kirk, but I'll tell you what, just like when Chris Pine landed the role in the feature films, whoever gets Kirk, I mean, it's life-changing, it's career-changing.
But
unlike some of these other actors, it's not like before where you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And that's who you are for the rest of your life, which is kind of cool. But I think it's big shoes to fill, whether it's Chris Pine or whether it's William Shatner, and the Spock thing, like the Quinto, who did it for the feature films, dude, he looks so much like Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
He was a good
And
Spock.
this guy, the guy that's on Discovery and then transitioned over to the Pike Strange New Worlds, he doesn't really look anything like the original Spock, and that's okay, because it's a new, I think that was what they were trying to do, was pay a lot of homage in the feature films, the reboots with the original crew, with J.J. Abrams, his universe, or his timeline. I think they were trying to emulate a lot of what was done before, and that is also kind of doing a little bit of typecasting. And I hope that they're very bold with whoever they get as Kirk.
Well, the thing is I don't know if I don't know if they'll set it up for Kirk to take over. You know what I'm saying? When it's done. Well, because they can't, because they're still in the prime timeline. So all they can do is fill in the gap. You can't go into, because then the fans could really lose their shit, because like everything's fine now. Like it's fine if you're in the prime timeline, but don't mess with the original run of Star Trek or the Next Generation. So I think what they'll do is basically lead up to it.
Do you think this will be a Smallville thing where you'll go the 6 years, the last episode will be Kirk finally at the helm of the Enterprise, and he'll go, "Take us out, Mr. Spock," and then they take him out, and that's it. And then it'll pick up where William Shatner was in his series, if it's the prime timeline. So just like we didn't get Tom Welling as Superman except in that one shot.
And
then what's the other show that just did the same thing to us?
Gotham. but I didn't watch that.
Gotham did the same thing. We
'Cause I
didn't
knew
get
better.
Batman.
Yeah.
It was the same
But
thing.
this is different.
It built it up there, and then you didn't get it.
This is different, though. I mean, I think Pike, I think Anson Mount did such a great job of establishing Pike as this really great, character that I do think like you can completely enjoy his run on the Enterprise and not be like thinking the whole time, when's Kirk going to take over? Because that was the problem with Smallville.
Was that making fun of me, that voice?
No, I was just saying just random
because
people.
I'm kind of like already thinking, when's Kirk coming along?
No, I mean but for those people, go watch Star Trek, the original one, because like if you start treading into
those people, so you're telling me just screw off, go watch the original Star Trek.
Go watch the original go watch the original series, because they're trying to and I think that again, I'm curious to see how they do it, because again, I think the main reason Discovery jumped ahead to the future was because they were running into a lot of problems with when you're doing a prequel and again, it's different with movies because you only have 2 hours to tell a story. But when you have a show for 20 plus hours a season, there's a lot of landmines you've laid that people can wander into if you're not careful.
And that's why Discovery pulled a Star Trek Voyager.
And just jumped
ahead in time, or got caught in a wormhole or whatever, like Voyager, and then you're off on the other side of the galaxy, and you're 250 light years away from Earth. Okay, I get it. That's fine. And if that's what they want to do, that's fine.
But that's not what they're doing with this. This left.
Is the 5-year journey.
Right.
This is the original,
Yeah, that'll be
Strange New Worlds. To search out Strange New Worlds. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that will be. I mean, I think that it'll be interesting to see how they wade through the minefield, because and especially with the original series, that is beloved as Star Trek: The Next Generation. So if you start going in and messing up their canon, it's gonna piss people off. So I think, and you could see that with Discovery, where they changed the look of the Klingons, and it's these Klingons don't look anything like the original series Klingons, and this is only a few years before,
or even the Next Generation Klingons.
Right. So I mean, I think it's smart for them to jump ahead and play in their sandbox, but I mean, I am kind of waiting for, and I don't know if they'll wait until either after the run of this show, however far it gets, is a true successor to the Next Generation. Because so far I haven't seen it. Picard isn't really a successor. We need because again, and I thought it was telling that when Riker showed up at the end of Picard, he wasn't on the Enterprise. He was on the Shenzhen or something like that, another ship.
Right. It was another starship. Well, but that was the only one that was available for him to sign a short contract with in order to be there at that thing.
But all of Starfleet pretty much showed up there at the end. You just saw them all warp in. And so where's the flagship? That's something they always talk about in the Next Gen is the Federation flagship will be there. So whenever there's an event going to happen, the Enterprise is going to be there. So I thought the whole reason they omitted the Enterprise is because they probably don't want to set anything in stone yet. Because I feel like they know they want to do something with it. They just don't know what yet. And I feel like this might be
Will Wheaton.
I do think it would be cool to see a Will Wheaton as a captain of the new Enterprise.
Will Wheaton, captain of the Enterprise? Are you kidding me?
Well, because
that would be the cow's tits.
Well, because then you could bring in Geordi could guest star in an episode, and Worf could come in an
Everybody can guest star. You could even bring Picard back in.
Yeah, I mean, if he's still kicking, in that timeline, I would.
Well, now he's an android.
Yeah, I mean, he can technically live a lot longer if he wanted to. So,
yeah, he's a skin job.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that show that was on Netflix?
Altered Carbon. Love that.
Altered Carbon. Yeah, they put his brain and all his memories and everything. He's a stack. Is that what they called it? A stack?
Well, they called the thing
put the stack in the skin.
Stack.
Yeah.
The first season.
I was thinking Blade Runner was a skin job, is what they called it.
That's why I laughed. I was like, oh, throwing out Blade Runner references right on.
But you know what? All right. So you said something earlier was, they even said it in the promo for the new Star Trek Stranger Worlds. We're going back to the way to our roots, optimism, all this kind of stuff. But, remember, like the Federation was formed after massive civil wars on Earth. Or like they became part of the Federation. They basically, like, you had to become like a bankrupt society before they evolved.
Right.
And when it came to Picard, one of the things that I had a complaint about was that they're cursing left and right. Even like the Romulans are like dropping F-bombs. And I'm like, why would a Romulan use a terminology that is Earth terminology, a slang from a dead language? Because if we're going with the timeline,
right,
Kirk brings up in Star Trek Voyage Home when they were on the bus and they had warped back in time to the 20th century, that they don't curse anymore because it's a dead language. They've evolved.
Right.
Just like there's no money, there's no nothing, all that kind of stuff. Society is what it is. But then, it was pointed out that, we're not supposed to conquer, the Enterprise is supposed to show up and then diplomatically solve problems. But yet every time an away team goes down, even in Kirk's, William Shatner's series, anytime an away team goes down, they're heavily armed.
Well,
heavily armed.
They got a
like
phaser.
They're going to stomp out something. Dude, come on. They got rifles.
No, they don't.
They got phaser rifles. Yes, they do.
The next generation did. The next gen, they had those little, like, non-gun
Star Trek
looking
Next Generation
phasers.
Had rifles. Star Trek First Contact, rifles.
Well, the movies did because they had to amp it up for the movies. But the show did not have rifles. All they had was a little.
They had racks inside compartments where they were handing rifles to people.
Yeah, in case they had to go to war.
They were heavily armed.
Yeah.
So, we talk about going back to the roots, but yet it's still like, an imperialistic conquering,
No.
And same thing with the Klingons, they want the same, they just, the Federation, the Romulans stay in in the Forbidden Zone, or, don't go there. We'll come in, the whole Federation will come down on you. I'm just saying, like, it's just, how much has it really truly evolved? Like, is the stuff that's going on in Picard, where it's reverting back to like that pre-Civil War stuff before the Federation was formed, is it all really, a product of, is the other stuff just masked where we're all like, we remember what Star Trek was all about, but yet, I don't know.
No, because like, again, I'm watching Next Gen. Like, I've been binging it since all this lockdown stuff started.
I do too, man. Especially when I'm cooking, I'll put it on the Amazon.
But they're not, like, if you ever watch, like, that was the one thing that was great about Picard, where he was opposite of Kirk. Kirk was a little bit of a cowboy. He'd kind of go in, not guns blazing, but he was kind of more the tough guy that would go in and like be charismatic and like try to win you over with smooth talking and shit like that. Whereas Picard is just, he's a more like, he's an older, wiser person who understands like de-escalation is the only way to truly resolve a conflict.
How many times do they launch photon torpedoes at something?
Only when they're being attacked.
Disable things with a tachyon pulse.
They always make a point is those things are only there for defense. And if you ever watch, pretty much 99% of the time, it's defense when they have to use their weapons. They never just go like, what's that? Oh, fuck it, shoot it. Like they try to work through it reasonably. And then when the other people either initiate contact with them, they respond, or if a vessel's coming and not listen, coming at them in an aggressive way and they won't, they're not responding to their hails, they might like fire a warning shot off to them. But everything they're doing is, I wish we had a military like that in a way, where it was more thinking it through before you go in and like get your ship all destroyed and fucked up through the whole thing. So it's like,
were you a big Next Generation fan when it came out. The Next Generation to me filled the void. See, I like Star Trek and Star Wars just about equally.
Yeah.
And so for me, like Star Trek Next Generation filled a void for a long time where we had no Star Wars content.
Yeah. Well, I think they're different in a way. Like, I think for me, I was, obviously I wasn't old enough to have watched the original series as it aired, but when I was a kid, they had it in reruns, and I'd catch it occasionally. But my experience with Star Trek was mostly from the movies, like Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock and Voyage Home and stuff like that. So those kind of had more weight to them in a way because they were movies. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. And, that was really the only space adventure stuff that was happening outside of Star Wars that had a really good production value that wasn't like some cheesy, campy, B movie kind of stuff. And then I remember seeing the trailer for Next Generation because I think it came out in 87. So, I was super young at that point. Yeah. And I just remember being like, oh, this looks really cool. And I remember watching it and just being like, wow. And, but because of the way
I was 13.
Yeah. So I was probably,
or 12. I was 12.
Yeah. Probably 12 or 13 too then. So it was like, well, if you were 12, I was definitely 12 or 11. So
yeah. Because 87 was when Jaws of the Revenge was in the theaters, and I had seen Jaws of the Revenge in 87. So I remember going to the theater, and I was 12.
Yeah. The Jaws of Revenge. I still laugh at Michael Caine getting out of the water completely dry. That's like one of my
completely dry. I know, right?
Whenever we would shoot stuff in the past, it'd be like, hey, if Michael McCain can come out of the water completely dry, I'm sure we could get away with it.
So. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's bad.
But go ahead about Star Trek.
No, but yeah, man, I think for me when I saw Next Gen, it was so cool. And like really when you go back and watch it, it holds up really well. And
it does.
And
then with the Blu-rays, they redid a lot of the special effects. They scanned because they shot on 35, I think it was 35 millimeter.
I think so.
And they rescanned everything, and then they upgraded the special effects, which I think is fine. They didn't, and they did that with the Blu-ray release of the original 1960s Star Trek. They redid the special effects, but they kept it. It was so subtle that they looked like they belonged in the 60s.
Right.
And that's brilliant right there, is to keep it. There's purists. I think if you bought the Blu-rays, you got both versions. So if you wanted to watch the old stuff, you could, because there's purists. And then if you wanted to watch the updated effects, you could. And that's something that brings me to the new Star Trek stuff. I remember when I first started seeing the promos and everything for Star Trek Discovery, my mouth hit the floor because I was like, dude, this looks like cinema.
Oh, yeah.
The effects and what they're doing. Like, their budgets must be astronomical on these shows.
Well,
10 million an episode, 8 million an episode, easy. I mean, if they were doing the Mandalorian, if they were doing the Mandalorian for 15 million an episode,
wow,
give or take, they got to be crushing this thing at 8 million a pop.
Well, I feel like that's why you're only getting 8 or 10 episodes a season, because they're taking what they would normally spend in a 22 episode season and condensing it and then, pulling it off. And the first 2 episodes of Discovery was amazing to me. Like when you kind of had when you had that little war breakout between the Federation and the Klingons, that was the shit. I saw that and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've seen in a long time. Just watching all these, Federation ships just going at it. I was like, I haven't seen anything like this in a Star Trek movie. Like, this is amazing. So, and then then after that, it kind of went downhill, with whatever they were doing. And I think it was cool because those are things you kind of are referenced in other things like the Klingon War. And I'm not even sure if that technically was considered the Klingon War, but just like it was cool seeing stuff like that on that scale. And again, it's sort of like I was saying, I think Discovery would have done really well if it wasn't the first show out the gate, because you had a lot of because this is the thing that I don't understand with Hollywood is they try to hijack properties. They'll take a property that has a loyal fan base and then they'll kind of hijack it and then shove a bunch of their bullshit in it. And then wonder why the fans aren't happy with it, because you're changing it compared, to what everyone loved about it to fit your
Yeah.
new narrative or whatever. And all you do is just piss off all your fans, and then the people you were trying to get probably aren't interested in it anyway. And then you have shows that underperform. Because I mean, I don't think Discovery is knocking it out of the park in the ratings, or at least for what the cost of the show is. And
Well, yeah, and then it's CBS All Access, so they did not make a ton of money off that, and that's why they're rebranding it later this summer. Now that Paramount's back in the fold, which is good because now they'll be able to merchandise.
Yeah.
We might start seeing action figures, we might start seeing posters, and because none of these shows, Picard, none of them could monetize on the show and have a separate revenue stream, whether it's a pinball machine or arcade game or video game or nothing. It's like because Paramount owned all the rights to merchandise, CBS owned just television rights. Well, how the hell is that going to work? So now that they're all coming together and we're going to have a new streaming platform, it'll be interesting to see how, or if Netflix or somebody just buys the Star Trek property from Paramount and from CBS because they're struggling financially. I mean, that could be an option for them if someone's looking for that one nugget that's going to make people stay with one streaming service.
I think that would be dumb on their part to do that.
Of course, I don't think CBS is going to, or Paramount's going to give up that bread and butter. But I do feel like they've got to figure out a new ways to monetize, because if you're spending $8 million an episode, and you're doing this across cross platforms of shows, Picard, and then you got Strange New Worlds coming, and then they're going to want to do like Disney's doing and have multiple. We're going to have multiple Star Wars television shows going, at any given time, and they need to be able to do that too. And I hope that they can get it done, because Star Trek shouldn't go to the wayside. But damn, they're spending a lot of money. I mean, some of the budgets for these shows are like Star Trek First Contact level. I mean, or Star Trek Beyond like budgets,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they need to. I mean, because again, I used the Orville as a great example. I mean, clearly, I think it's on Fox. They're able to make a show that, I mean, it's kind of a comedy, but everyone's pretty much agrees that is basically the current form of Star Trek. I mean, the old school way, the way they do it, it's episodic and it's not, a linear story. And I mean, they can clearly do it on budget and, produce whatever 18 or 22 episodes a season, however many they do. So I think they can do it. That was one of the things, while I didn't like Discovery, those first 2 episodes being like a CGI, like crazy fest, I don't think it needs it. Cause again, it kind of gets away from Star Trek. If Star Trek Next Generation could tell amazing stories with the limited tools they had at their time, as far as using models to do all their stuff, then there's no excuse why we can't get that in a modern form with, your CG, like again, with the amount of CG you need. You don't need to. And I think we'll get that in Strange New Worlds. I think they're returning to that.
What, real quick, because we're past the hour mark here, and I just want to wrap it up. But what do you think the future is for Picard? I mean, I know they're going to do a season 2, but do you think it's really just going to run out in season 2 and have to figure out how to wrap that up? Because people are going to gravitate towards Strange New Worlds. And I think we've gotten the nostalgia thing from Picard.
Yeah.
And unless you bring back, Wesley Crusher as captain of the Enterprise, and you can keep peppering things, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how much life Picard has, especially now that he's not really Picard anymore and he's a replicant with Picard's memories. And so he's an exact copy. The whole thing just, I don't know, man.
Yeah. I mean, again, like when I think back to it, the only parts of Picard where I experienced like real happiness and joy from watching it was when Next Generation characters were in it.
I agree 100%. That was me too.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I was running that, Star Trek or whatever, my play would be to see how Strange New Worlds does. If it knocks it out of the park, like I think it will, then they'll probably be like, okay, this version is over. You know, the way we've been doing it, we're gonna end that. Like the what was it? The special ops series they were gonna do with the one actress from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That kind of went to the wayside, right?
Well, I hope it does. Like, because to me, that sounds like a super boring episode. Like, every time they did that on Discovery, I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't care anything about this storyline. I love that actress, but I don't want to see a show about their special ops
Right.
group. I would rather see Strange New Worlds. So I'm glad because initially her show, whatever it was going to be, was going to come out next after Picard. And then I guess, I don't think Picard did what they were expecting in the ratings. And I think that's why they greenlit Strange New Worlds. Cause I think a lot of people they're starting to let it sink in. Like, we want positive, hopeful.
Well, and it's the same with Star Wars, and it's like what you were saying. They acquire these properties like Disney did, and then they blow it up. And then they realize, well, if we just had catered to the audience that
Right.
loved it in the first place and hooked more generations of it, we would make money hand over fist.
Oh yeah.
And then same thing with Paramount. They come in and they blow up Star Trek. Then they realize, these
Yeah.
40 and 50-year-old guys that still have no problem spending $100 on an action figure, maybe we should cater to them instead of the kids, the millennials that don't give a shit, that don't watch the stuff. I'm not saying like you should make stuff for 50-year-old people or 40-year-old people like us. But what I'm saying is, know who your fan base is. It's just like with the comic books. What was that comic book series that that is bombing, that they put out, that had like Safe Space and what the hell was
they
this
haven't
thing?
come out. That hasn't come out yet.
Or it hasn't come out. That's gonna bomb, and you're basically
Yeah.
alienating the people that buy comics by making fun of them with a comic book that has a character named Safe Space, and then somebody else named
Snowflake.
What's Snowflake?
Yeah.
It's like making fun of, how stupid is that?
It's
You know,
super
like-
stupid. And it got downvoted.
It's gonna bomb.
Oh, if I don't even think I think Marvel might have canceled it already. I mean, because the YouTube video that they put out promoting it had like 225,000 downvotes, and it was like maybe 5,000 upvotes. So it's like, nobody wants this, especially people who read comic books. And I feel bad for kids today reading comic books, because Marvel used to have some of the best stuff. Like, I remember when I got into comic books in the early 90s, you had a great run in X-Men, because I loved Jim Lee as an artist when he was, then I used to collect Punisher War Journal because he drew it. I used to collect the X-Men that he did. And it was just like so much fun, cool stories were happening in Marvel. And now when I kind of look at the comic books, I don't even recognize it anymore. And I'm like
you're never going to see Wolverine like he does in the comic book. He'll cut off someone's head.
Well,
and then
Yeah.
put it around a corner
Yeah.
and talk with it to another character.
I mean,
you're never going to see the violence. That's what they're doing with the stories is the same thing they're doing with television. They're blowing it up, and they're gonna really hurt the fan base. Like, dude, give the people what they want. What's wrong with that? Why do you have to interject all this crap into it and piss people off? Just give them what they want. Who cares if it's the same package stuff, or if it's the same package stuff with a little extra? You give me the box of cereal and give me the toy inside.
yeah.
That's all I'm asking for.
Well, also to sort of take it back to Star Trek, like what were you saying? I mean, I don't even think the way the next gen did it is a model that it's only 40 or 50-year-old fans. I think it was just good storytelling. It was good writing, good storytelling, and amazing acting.
In 1987, we were both 12 and 13 years old,
Right.
respectively. So we grew up with that.
Right.
They were writing for all generations. We just happen to be in our 40s now, looking back going, that was good storytelling.
Right.
But they were writing for adults too then.
Yeah, yeah. No, exactly. I mean, I think if something is good, it's good to everybody for the most part. Like,
Dude, Star Trek Deep Space Nine was good too.
yeah,
I mean, and that all took place on an orbiting, you know,
yeah, it was a space station on
platform
a
that
wormhole. Yeah,
near a wormhole, and
yeah,
for the most part, that was a linear story
yeah. They went
because they couldn't keep doing contained things.
in
You
a
had to
station.
kind of
Yeah,
follow in a station, yeah. And so, I mean, I'm just saying, like, right now, CBS and Paramount, they've got their ducks in a row coming together, keep giving us good quality product. Lucasfilm is finally getting, putting the past behind them with the
just get rid of
bullshit that they
one
went
person.
through. They just no, Kathleen Kennedy's great.
No,
Just let's give the fans what they want. Keep telling good stories, and that's my final thoughts.
yeah, I agree. That's all I want. Good storytelling.
Good storytelling. And now, and then I think tomorrow, I know this podcast won't come out in time, but Zack Snyder is doing his, it looks like HBO is signing the deal and they're working out behind the scenes to get the Snyder Cut done for HBOMax. It's going to hit the trades here soon. This is what everyone's saying.
If they do, then I will subscribe to HBO Max. That's the only thing at this point that would get me to subscribe to HBO Max is the Snyder Cut.
Their list of everything that's going to be on there came out today because they had their keynote, and there's nothing on there that I went, oh, I have to subscribe to that. Most of the stuff that they had,
yeah,
I have on DVD from the 80s and 90s. And, and I'm not into a lot of their new content. I'm just like HBO stuff. I mean, and now that, Game of Thrones is over and I don't care to see, the prequel to Game of Thrones. I'm done. They lost me as a fan on that last season of Game of Thrones. They just kind of, they screwed the pooch on that one. So, it would take the Snyder Cut, but I have a feeling if the Snyder Cut gets out there on HBO, they may release it on Blu-ray too to make some money. Director's cut.
I'm sure they would.
And if they do that, I might buy the director's cut if it's good. But if it's on HBO Max and you subscribe, you give me your codes to log in so I can watch it. And then if I like it, maybe I'll buy it when it's on Blu-ray, and maybe they'll do a really good behind the scenes in-depth thing and talk about to Zack Snyder, his daughter committed suicide. He had to leave the project, I mean, like, they brought on Joss Whedon, Mustache Gate. Like, there's so much that like went down on that movie that like, if they really give us the movie we wanted, I think what's going to scare the shit out of Warner Brothers is if they give us the movie we wanted, then they're going to be like, well, we're going off on all these tangents now. What do we do now? Because everybody loved this. They loved this version of Batman. They loved it. And now we've got a new Batman. Now we've got and Wonder Woman's still out there. Aquaman, we don't know what we're doing with.
Yeah.
It's like, well, shit, what do we do now? And can Ben Affleck still exist within the Snyderverse that's created if they keep going? You can't bring in Pattinson, just leave that and then let Joaquin jump on that, and that could be their Batman thing there.
Yeah.
But you could always bring back Batman if you wanted to, Ben Affleck, into Wonder Woman or into something else like with Superman. I mean, you could do it, and the fans might go, "Oh my God!" And if you did, you could bring back Bruce Wayne as Ben Affleck in the wheelchair as Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
As Bruce Wayne, and then bring in a younger Batman and do Arkham or whatever you want to do. But I'm just saying, like, this could really give a boost to DC if it's handled right and they go, oh, maybe there's room to play in this universe still. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think we'll get I doubt Affleck will come back to the role. I mean, because it sounds like it almost killed him with drinking and everything else because he didn't take the bad
He's fine.
reaction.
He's out of rehab.
Right. Out now that he's away from it. But I mean, it sounded like he was really stressing about all of that. So I don't know.
But
if
I wanted his version of Batman with Deathstroke. I wanted to see that movie.
Yeah, I wanted to see that too. I mean, and it's kind of sad. Like, I'm not a huge Zack Snyder fan in how he handled Superman. But again, like once you go back and watch Batman vs Superman, the extended cut, it makes a lot more sense. And I think it was a crime they released that movie without that in there, because it lets you understand Superman's position a lot more and how he got there, instead of us just now all of a sudden seeing like a Superman acting like Batman essentially. And you're like, what? How did that happen? And so now that I saw that, I was like, I actually appreciate this movie more. And now I would have liked to seen that guy's take on Justice League. Cause I was kind of like, Batman versus Superman. I was at the time looking forward to, I think I remember telling, I was like, oh, I have faith in, Joss Whedon. He'll fix it. I was so wrong about that. Cause he definitely, it was just you had two different tones. You can't take Joss Whedon, who where the Avengers is kind of campy and fun, and mix it with a moody, serious, gritty action movie. It's like oil and vinegar or whatever, or oil and water. It just doesn't mix. And I think that's why Justice League failed, because it was just a mashup of two different styles and then a lot of reshoots that didn't really give you what you wanted.
It didn't help it. I mean, the mustache.
Ugh,
that was
horrible.
But when you see the behind the scenes stuff from Zack Snyder, and you see the black Superman suit, and you knew he was going to show up with that, and he had the beard and the long hair, and like I mean, I don't know if they went that way with it, but like you saw these behind the scenes things, and you're like, Jesus, man, we all wanted the black suit,
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see that. And so, I mean, now it'd be nice to see what his envision was and what his intentions were with it. And who knows, if the buzz is big enough, you might get a Dark Side movie out of it, because I think that's who they were setting up.
Because they wanted their Thanos. They wanted Darkseid.
Right.
They wanted.
So I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. I think they'll release it. The fans will go be happy, and then it'll be done. Because I feel like with JJ coming on to take over the Warner Brothers, he's like, I got a vision for this, and that's not it. So it'll just be an HBOMax thing.
Well, and on that note, another successful podcast.
Yeah, no technical issues. That's always a plus.
I know. I tell you what, I am getting tired of the COVID-19 scruffy thing here, this beard and my hair. I just, it'd be nice to get a haircut.
Yeah, I need one. It's looking pretty rough.
All right, man. I'll see you on the next one.
All right, later.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke, and that you come back and join us again. Don't forget to subscribe to our show, both on YouTube and on Anchor or Spotify, iTunes, wherever you can find the show. The links will be in the comment section below. And we'll see you on the next one.